Hey everyone, welcome to the NFL edition of the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast for October 19th, 2016, brought to you by FantasyLabs. I'm Matthew Freedman, the editor-in-chief, and I'm joined by regulars Adam Levitan and Peter Jennings on Twitter at Adam Levitan and CSURAM88. And also joining the show is JM Tohline at JM Tohline. He's the premium content director for Roto-Grinders, and in his spare time, he is a novelist. JM, how's it going?
It's going well, man. It's good to hang out with you guys, Matt and Pete. First time doing a show with you. Good to see Adam an extra time during the week, and
once is enough. Once a week is enough for me. We're gonna have to make this just a one time thing.
Just doubles the fun in my week. So
yeah, I guess I should apologize that we had to have Adam on this show. How did week 6 go for you, JM?
I've had better weeks. I've had worse. So it hasn't been. I think I've almost equaled my total losing weekends from the last 2 years combined so far this year. So ready to turn the page to week 7. I like this week a lot. I think there's a lot of going to be a lot of places where chalk is flowing where I'm not super interested in those plays to begin with. So looking forward to this week and see how it turns out.
I know why JM isn't doing as well this year. Can I give my theory?
Yes.
Oh God.
Chalk.
The chalk has been I think almost unrealistically awesome this year. And I know me and Pete have talked about this, like kind of waiting for the shoe to drop, where the plays that have been, I think the sharp plays or the obvious plays or plays that made the most sense have been hitting at an extraordinarily high rate. We haven't seen any injuries to those guys. JM plays a contrarian style even in his cash games, even though he doesn't think it's contrarian, it is. So for people that play like that, I think it may be a bigger struggle than maybe for people like me and Pete that like to play it maybe a little bit more straightforward. That's my theory. I don't know if that's true.
No, I mean, I think that's accurate. We've talked, over the last year about, you and Jeff have said to me, no, you're not trying to be contrarian in cash games, but you are being contrarian. And it's for me, like I want to play whatever I think is the best play, and that's not always going to be the chalk, where a lot of people are comfortable being chalk chasers in cash games. I'm likely to go off the board, and you're right. I mean, and there's been spots like Ryan Tannehill and Jarvis Landry against the Browns, where if Cody Parkey doesn't miss that field goal, those guys, are 12 points lower than they are combined. But he misses the field goal, and I fell, I think, a half point shy of cash games that week without either guy. So yeah, I mean, chalk has been hitting, and it's kind of an interesting situation because we don't typically see that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things go moving forward.
Levitan and Pete, how was week 6 for you guys?
Yeah, it was good for me. I thought that playing 3 running backs was pretty much the lock, and then playing one of Cam or Breeze was the lock. And for me, playing Jimmy Graham and Cam Meredith was the lock. Like I never even considered coming off of that lineup construction all week. So yeah, I thought that if you started like that, it was pretty hard to lose.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, we all had similar plays in our contests. At least a lot of the sharps did, and paid dividends. I mean, I had Le'Veon Bell, McCoy, Meredith, basically in 100% of cash game lineups. Played Cam on FanDuel, Breeze on DraftKings. Had a good bit of Lamar Miller, so it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, well, in terms of skill game propositions, Levitan had an unholy week. You went 10-2, which is just unreal. That's now on the season you are a Rick Porcello-esque 23-13. Pete is 21-17. I'm 13-9. I need to pick up the volume, although I think it's going to be hard to out-volume you two eaters. Levitan, you were especially against Jamal Charles last week. What are your thoughts on him moving forward? Is he basically just the de facto number 2 running back in Kansas City until we see something different?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Kansas City coaches know better than us where Jamal Charles is at. And everybody just disregards injuries so easily. Oh, he's Jamal Charles. He's going to the Hall of Fame. Of course he's going to be perfectly fine as he's almost 30 years old and coming off of his second ACL tear. I mean, people don't realize how difficult that is. And then I think people also underestimate how good Spencer Ware is. So the coaches know better than us. I mean, Spencer Ware outsnapped Jamal Charles 40-15 last week, out-touched him 26-11. I think that as Jamal Charles gets healthier, it will kind of get tighter. But for in the short term, I mean, I think there's no doubt that if I had to pick one, it would be Spencer Ware.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, we're recording this on Tuesday night, so it's early-ish in the week, but I think that's good because it means that we haven't really had time to have all of our takes influenced by the echo chamber of Twitter. JM, I'm curious about your weekly DFS process when you're not coordinating and writing content for RotoGrinders. What does your research and lineup building process look like Monday to Monday?
So I do a complete game-by-game breakdown in premium. It's usually 15 to 17,000 words, and takes me about 30 hours to put together. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is primarily focused on that, and I don't even look at anyone else's content until Thursday or even Friday. But yeah, I try to keep a pretty narrow field of people I listen to. I've gotten to watch your guys' show 3 or 4 times this season. I'll read Evan Silva's matchups column. Adam and Jeff and Evan and I talk throughout the week and try to keep things to a pretty narrow core of people that I listen to, people whose opinions I respect, and try to gather as much information and quality thoughts from there. And for me, I mean, most people know I'm a one lineup guy. And so for me, it's, I spend a lot of time really chiseling down my list throughout the week and just cutting out anything I don't think is an optimal play and seeing, what I can get down to that's just a very solid core. I found that I make most of my money each season in the higher dollar tournaments where I'm not going to put in 2 or 3 or 4 lineups anyway. So if I can chisel down my plays to, the 3 or 4 or 5 wide receivers I like the most, same thing for top 2 or 3 running backs, top 2 or 3 quarterbacks, then that really puts me in a good position by Sunday to have a team that I like a lot.
All right, well, let's get into the show. As always, we're focusing on roster construction and game theory. For previews of each game as well as positional breakdowns, check out our NFL dashboard, which comes out every Thursday. Now, JM, you say that you're not really a chalk chaser, but you do have your convictions and you chisel down to your list of guys that you want as the core of your lineup. Right now, and granted we are early in the week, but right now, who are the guys that you are thinking about for your lineup, the guys whose matchups interest you?
So real quick, actually, to jump back to what Adam was saying earlier about his theories on why I've had a rougher start to the season than past seasons. One thing I've also noticed is I used to not worry as much about game theory in football, with the assumption being if I can accurately predict how things will go, then I can go with whatever I think are the best plays. And this year I've kind of thought a little more about game theory, and I'm trying to get away from that and just say what are the best plays, which brings us to this discussion. And this week there's a couple guys I've highlighted early. At quarterback, there's a lot of cheap guys I like, but I think Tom Brady's a solid lock for another 28-plus points this week. At running back, I think it's going to be tough to go wrong with LaShawn McCoy and DeMarco Murray. There's some wide receivers I really like at the higher end, so I'm looking for cheaper running backs that can get the same production. But I like those guys at the high end. And then I imagine that by the end of the week, Mike Evans, Julio Jones will be extremely popular. But I like both of them a lot in their spots, and I like A.J. Green in his spot. In all but one game this year, the Browns have allowed number one target to have 10 or more number one receiver, number one pass game target to have 10 or more looks. And, they're so bad that teams basically lock onto their number one guy and just throw to him. So I expect, 10, 12, 14 looks to A.J. Green this week, and I like him a lot. I think 8,600 on DraftKings. So those are the guys that I'm most focused on early in the week that are chalky that I'm pretty comfortable going to.
Yeah, I like those. And I think you're right that those are the chalky guys. If we were to look at Adam Levitan's FantasyLabs ownership projections, a lot of those guys are on the higher end of the projections. Levitan, what do you think about those guys? And then who are some of the guys that you're looking at?
Yeah, so I ran my first set of ownership projections before this Vincent Jackson news hit. I will be bumping up Mike Evans. I have him 13 to 16 now. I think I could bump him up at least to the 21 to 25 range, maybe higher. The only guy that JM didn't mention that I have above 20% projected right now is Tyrell Williams. Basically, as a price play, I think people are going to make in Atlanta. Atlanta, despite the presence of Desmond Trufant, has certainly struggled really badly to cover wide receivers, and Tyrell has moved way ahead of Travis Benjamin and certainly a better talent, I think, than Dontrell Inman. So to get Phillip Rivers' number one target for 4,400 in a potential shootout with the Falcons, I think people, when they try to save money, are going to look at Tyrell. And then some other guys I think will be popular will be Spencer Ware already talked about him and Golden Tate. And, we can have a discussion about whether Golden Tate is chasing points or not. I don't really have a strong case either way yet. I just regret and hate myself for not playing Golden Tate last week. I'm not ready to move on yet.
Levitan. Yeah. I like that. Peter, what do you think?
Well, they just nailed everyone that I wanted to talk about. I mean, I think that's every chalky play. Tyrell the Gazelle is probably he's the least sexy name out of that group, but I think he's in a really good spot, and you are going to have to save somewhere. So I don't know. I guess one other guy that I think I'll be interested to see his ownership. Not necessarily think he'll be chalk, but he might start moving more into chalk range on certain sites is Rob Gronkowski as he's getting healthy. Is Gronk going to be a thing? Because he was a huge thing last year, and that burned me quite a bit. I played Gronk in cash games quite often. So I think they hit on the big ones. Julio Jones, Mike Evans, two of my favorites right now. Quarterback position, I think Matt Ryan's another guy people will look at. But, it's an interesting week in that there are a lot of options. Pete,
I remember last week you were on Jeremy Maclin as I think one of the bold calls. You had him for 100 yards and a touchdown. This week he is going against New Orleans. Do you have any thoughts on him? I think we have him with a higher ownership projection, maybe on FanDuel.
Yeah, I got killed on all the skill game propositions because I went long the Kansas City passing game, and then the weather kind of turned that into a worse spot. But certainly still was an opportunity, and they did run the ball so effectively, which killed the passing game. But yeah, I love Maclin. I love Kelsey. I think both running backs are in play. Alex Smith, we haven't talked about. I mean, anyone in Kansas City or anyone on Kansas City is a viable play this week, and I'm sure we'll see onslaughts of Kansas City guys in tournaments as well.
Well, let's talk about some of the chalky players we would look to pivot away from, and maybe some of the leverage and pivot plays that we'd be considering. Adam, let's start with you. Who are you looking to pivot away from and to?
Well, if you watched the show last week, you know that I'm not too high on the Chiefs passing game pretty much ever. So I think they'll be popular just because they're facing the Saints and they're at home and people are going to go nuts. Sunday's going to come. They're going to be like, oh, my God, Alex Smith isn't throwing the ball. Oh, my God, if they're in the red zone and they're not giving Alex Smith any pass attempts. Oh, my God, Alex Smith is only throwing the ball 5 yards down the field. I mean, that's what Alex Smith does. So don't roster Alex Smith if you're not ready to tilt about that on Sunday. I think that, I don't know, like you've done the Coors Field of DFS thing, man. Like I think the Saints thing is a thing in the Superdome. I'm not convinced it's a thing outside of the Superdome just because Drew Brees is likely to play so poorly won't force Alex Smith to keep his foot on the gas. So my initial impression is that I'm not very interested in Smith and Maclin and Kelsey, and I think other people will be.
And with that, too, I mean, the Chiefs' defense is way better at Arrowhead. I know they broke down week 1 against the Chargers, but, I mean, it's a pretty tough spot for the Saints to go in and put up points. Like, I was shocked when I saw, like, what's the over-under at 51 right now, something like that. I was pretty shocked by that.
It is a really high team total. I disagree with you a little, Adam. I think we might have some skill game props down the road here. I don't think Alex Smith is ever like the greatest option, but he does have more rushing equity than I think people realize. So I do understand what you're saying. There's a lot of opportunity too in the Kansas City defense. So there's a lot of ways that Kansas City could score a lot of points. The passing game could do poorly, but I think there's some opportunity there. Hopefully I haven't looked at the weather yet. That's one other thing. Tuesday, I haven't looked at the weather at all. So
it really wasn't that bad. I mean, I'll give you a little bit of a hedge, but it wasn't that bad in Oakland.
No, the game was
Cooper was going ham. Cooper went ham.
Cooper's the nuts, bro.
I know.
I'm Mari Truther over here, but I mean, there's a lot of ways they can score. What if they get 2 defensive touchdowns? What if Spencer Ware has another great game? What if Charles gets in? I mean, they were running the ball so easily last game that could be the same thing in this spot too. So we'll see.
Here's a question on Alex Smith in the rushing. He really hasn't had it this year, and I think that's maybe possibly just due to randomness as opposed to anything else. But I'm wondering if there is the possibility that with Doug Peterson as the offensive coordinator no longer there, if they are de-emphasizing a little bit the running aspect at the quarterback position, and if maybe that's just something we're not going to see out of Alex Smith this year. And if it's not there for him this year, I think that really diminishes the capability that he has to offer value in cash games. Pete, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's still early in the season. I think there's still opportunity for him to run a couple touchdowns in. He is a good athlete relatively at the quarterback position. We'll see if that continues to be a trend. They do have a lot of running backs that are great in the red zone, so that is a concern. But he's done it throughout his entire career, and he's been in the league for a while. So I don't know. We'll see if that comes to fruition more over the next couple games.
I feel like Adam and I have more hate for Alex Smith than most people because we're constantly fighting Jeff on that on Friday nights as well. But for me, like I look a lot at coaching tendencies and game flow expectations. And like Andy Reid just, he's not going to call a bunch of pass plays unless he has to, is my thought. I actually had written down for one of my pivots off of chalk is going with fading the Kansas City pass game and going with the Kansas City run game. And I'm not so certain, we'll get a better feel later in the week, but I'm not so certain Spencer Ware will be chalk because people are scared about the split workload. But yeah, I think that the Chiefs, when they can, optimally would like to just run the ball 30 times. And I think they can do that this week against the Saints and keep Breeze off the field. So that's kind of my take. What do you guys think about Antonio Brown? Do you think he'll be chalk this week with Landry Jones, or do you think he'll be –
Oh, no. I think I have him at literally like 2 to 4%. I mean, nobody is going to play. I mean, people don't like to use guys against the Patriots, number one. And number two, I think everybody will become aware. If they're not aware yet, they'll become aware of how bad Landry Jones is soon.
I think they had the chance to become aware of that last year. It wasn't good, and it seems like there's really been nothing to make us think that it will be anything other than what we saw last year.
No, he's bad, man. I mean, I played – obviously I was playing preseason, and Landry Jones was like – anytime when you play preseason and a guy's going to play 4 quarters, normally it's just like fire him in. And like they were like, Landry Jones is going to play 4 quarters. And I was like, oh, God, I don't know. That's how you know a guy is really freaking bad.
He is terrible, and it's a big downgrade to all the Pittsburgh options. I'm less optimistic about their offense in general. I'll be curious to see ownership on Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. And I do think, JM, you made a really good point on Spencer Ware. He probably won't be owned very much at all, honestly. I think that people don't like rostering him in general, and there's concern about Jamal Charles. A lot of people rostered Jamal Charles last week, so I'll be curious to see how ownership breaks down there, and certainly share some of the concerns with Alex Smith, but I think I'm a little more bullish than you guys are.
Hey, I have another one for you guys. Kendall Wright played what I think it was 22 snaps last week and had like 9 targets. I feel like some people will jump on him, especially in lower dollar tournaments. What do you guys think about Pierre Garçon as a pivot? They're the exact same price on DraftKings. Garçon is going against that awful Detroit pass defense. Any thoughts there?
I mean, you're going way too deep for me on a Tuesday. I haven't even thought about Kendall Wright and Pierre Garçon yet. I didn't even look at that situation. I mean, I just assumed that the Titans went ham because they were playing the Browns. But yeah, I mean, Kendall Wright is certainly, you can make a case he's by far the best talent in that Titans secondary. I don't know. I don't think he'll be popular at all if that's what you're asking. And Garçon, I mean, I don't know, man. Like Crowder and Garçon and Djax and Vernon, it feels like it'll be pretty spread out. I don't know. You'd have to ask me about that on Friday.
Yeah. I think Kendall Wright's a good call. We'll see what his ownership is. I imagine it won't be very high. I don't think people roster Titans players outside DeMarco Murray that much in general. And even after a big game or a big couple games from Mariota, I still think that he will be, Mariota, Kendall Wright stacks will be low owned. Even, especially with Delaney Walker putting up a dud last week, I think there could be a lot of leverage there. The one thing about Pierre Garçon is I will never roster that guy, or not never, but I'm very hesitant to roster him with a crowded passing game there. And in addition to that, he sued FanDuel, so yeah, I'm off Garçon.
Seriously, I just remembered that. I
forgot about the FanDuel suit.
Peter holds grudges. He doesn't forget. Okay, let's go to kind of the game selection section of the show. Pete, because you are the DFS degenerate, we're going to start with you. Game selection, really important. What are some of the GPPs that you have your eye on this week?
It's the same kind of thing. The Thunderdome's smaller than it's been in the past, which is disappointing. They're putting a lot of attention on the Mega Q on DraftKings, the $5,300 buy-in. So I'll be firing that. And then the Wildcat will get a lot of my attention on the Millionaire Maker. I know those aren't necessarily the best tournaments for everyone, but I do like them a lot. I do think that the play action has become a pretty nice tournament as well. And Adam obviously will be repping the slant, so I don't want to take that from him. But my main strategy is get as much cash game action as I possibly can, ideally in head-to-heads, and then firing the higher stake tournaments and lower fees.
Yep. Yeah. They bumped up the Wildcat to 5,005 people as of last week, and they kept it the same for this week. And I think, it's a little bit of a stretch for people. Like, I feel like 100 or 200 might be more comfortable for people, but I think people stretch to get to the 333 because it's really the only thing in that range on DK. So, it's an awesome tournament. The payout is flat. And they pay out, I believe, what are they paying out now? They're paying out $1,275 out of the 5,005 people. So pretty good chance to at least get in the money there. Obviously the slant, and then the 3 max tournaments. The cover 4 I think is an awesome tournament for lower stakes players. 3 entry max, $4 buy-in. Take your 3 best entries and fire them in there. I think makes a lot of sense.
JM, what are you looking at?
So, I'm usually in every single tournament, but I don't love these tournaments that have, like the Wildcats 333 and then it's 500 for min cash.
Yeah.
I don't love that as much, but I'll be in there anyway. The only one I really avoid is those ones where I think like top 40% get paid out, like a small amount, like the double bubble or whatever those ones are. I skip over those, but then, I think a lot of people kind of overlook the single entry tournaments too, which are a great place to get some money in there. Or like Adam mentioned, the 3 max tournaments. I like those ones a lot as well.
Now I have a question. So on the single entry or the 3 max entry, are you still firing in that one lineup that you've made for the week? Or are you making different lineups, but still single entry for each one?
No, I'll just make one lineup. Every once in a while, I'll go 2 lineups, but typically, if I'm putting in some extra money in play, I'll just double enter the lineups I have as opposed to extending to extra lineups. I put in usually about 10 or 12 in the Millionaire Maker, but I don't extend too far beyond that.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk about some conventional stacks that we'd be looking at for this week. And JM, let's start with you. We've touched on some of these already, but let's kind of go a little bit deeper. What are the stacks you're looking at?
That game in Atlanta is pretty sweet. I think Phillip Rivers might go a little overlooked. We touched on Tyrell Williams being chalky, but people might overlook Phillip Rivers along the way. Julio Jones will be chalky. Maybe some people don't go to Matt Ryan still. And I like that game in San Francisco. And, if people are jumping on Mike Evans, we could see Jameis Winston throwing the ball quite a bit as well. They don't run the same, up-tempo pace Tampa on the road that they do at home. They're kind of trying to develop that in Jameis Winston and in that offense, and they're practicing it more at home. But we know the 49ers are going to run at a fast pace, and that's still going to create extra plays for Jameis and for Mike Evans. So I like that Jameis to Mike Evans stack as well, which is kind of half conventional and half contrarian, adding Jameis Winston in there.
Yeah, I wrote down Jameis, and I think you can play him with Mike Evans and with Cam Brate, and maybe you can play him with Adam Humphries. I think it's an upgrade getting Vincent Jackson off the field. The dude was completely done, like put him in the tent and shoot him done. So it was time for them to move on, and I think that they'll be better without him. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there for stack Jameis with pretty much whoever you want on the Bucks. And the one that when the first thing I looked at when I got on the slate was Andy Dalton to AJ Green. Is just like I've been rostering quarterbacks against Cleveland. JM mentioned the Ryan Tannehill spot. Then I used Kirk Cousins against Cleveland, and then last week I was on Mariota a lot against Cleveland. It's just every week, I'm just not going to stop until they prove they're anything short of a college caliber defense. And Andy Dalton at home, hopefully they get Tyler Eifert back, which I think would be a huge, huge boost for Andy Dalton. But even if they don't, Dalton to AJ Green and LaFell or something like that, or maybe even Uzoma or whatever you want to do there, I think is pretty strong.
Yeah, I like all those stacks. I also think that Stafford to Golden Tate, Stafford to Marvin Jones will be interesting. JM mentioned Tom Brady off the bat. Normally it's a little bit harder with him to pick a target, but I think it's getting to be Gronk time again. So I don't mind Brady and Gronk together. I mean, there's a lot of stacks this week that make sense. Mariota we talked about as a contrarian stack. So we'll see. I do like the Jameis one quite a bit. I thought it might be sneakier than, we're making it out already if we're all on it. But I do think Jameis to Mike Evans is really interesting.
If we could talk a little bit about some of the non-Millie Maker games. So, right, we have the Thursday night game. That's Chicago against Green Bay. We have the London game, which is the Giants against the Rams. I'm a little bit interested in whether you guys have takes on some of those games. Ty Montgomery, is this a thing, right? Is this something that you would actually be tempted to rely on? And what's going on with that running back situation? Is Ty Montgomery going to see some carries in this game? And then also OBJ in London. The favorite teams in London's have just throughout the last decade, but especially the last half decade, they have had such an outsized advantage that, you have to sort of look at that and think okay, what could happen with the Giants there? But you don't want to play OBJ. Just had a huge game. And it seems like if people are playing in a slate with the London game, they will be on OBJ. But I'd be curious just to hear what you guys are thinking about some of those games.
Yeah, I think if you're playing Thursday, I don't see how you don't at least consider Montgomery and Cam Meredith given their prices. I don't know what's going on with the Packers running back situation, but it looks like Eddie Lacy's not going to play, and they have Niall Davis, who, by the way, is he's in the player pool for DraftKings, but if you use him, you'll get a 0. So, I don't really know what their plan is at running back. I assume it has a lot to do with Ty Montgomery, and I believe he's $3K or something. I didn't even look at the Thursday prices, but that's crazy. And then, Cam Meredith has been the most targeted player in the NFL over the last 2 weeks, and that flanker position under Brian Hoyer has been the most targeted position in the NFL. Without Sam Shields, I don't see how you would ignore that either. And these guys can talk about Odell, man. I can't stand that guy. Watching him take a slant 5 yards for 80, when I never have him is the worst thing ever. And I really, really don't like this dude for a lot of reasons. So I don't know. If I was playing that slate, I'm not sure I am, but I'm not playing OBJ over Julio, AJ Green, or definitely not over Julio or AJ Green, and probably not over Mike Evans either.
Right. I understand the frustration with OBJ, and the way he acts after the fact too is a little tilting, especially if you're fading him. But Montgomery is a lock essentially for a punt play. I think he should see a lot of opportunity. A very athletic guy out of Stanford. I think someone at 3K who should get a lot of opportunity in a good spot where the Packers have a massive team total. Meredith's also a great play, and then shout out to Ian, who had a great tweet out earlier today that Jordy Nelson has averaged, I think it was 7.6 plus minus in games where the Packers are at home and over a 7-point favorite. So Jordy Nelson has as much touchdown equity as almost any receiver in the NFL. And I could definitely see a lot of game stacks here. Normally I fade. My favorite weeks are when I just 100% fade the Thursday game. This is a week where I'll have exposure to the Thursday game.
Yeah, especially there's not a ton of value on Sunday. So if you can play that slate and grab some pretty sure value as far as targets. Hey, Pete, didn't you have a huge weekend last year with OBJ against the Saints?
Yeah, with Delvin Bro. Yeah, so, I thought Delvin Bro was out. And
you and Adam have very conflicting experiences with Beckham, I feel.
I've been on both sides of Beckham, and this last week I had shares, but I think I was slightly underweight, and I was really high in a tournament and got passed by a lot of OBJ.
Man, this last week, I think Evan Silva texted to say that OBJ was going to have a huge game, and Adam and I argued against him last Monday or Tuesday, and then obviously went off for 40-plus points. But, the Thursday night game, Ty Montgomery you almost have to lock him in. I was on Randall Cobb last week expecting him to have the Montgomery role. I think, Adam, did you stick on Cobb in cash games? I don't know, but we got you muted. But
sorry, yeah, I played Cobb in cash last week, and I thought we were lucky to be bailed out by that touchdown.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I thought he was going to play the Montgomery role too. Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, you take Montgomery in that role at a cheaper price, and I mean, it's just a fantastic play. Same thing with Cam Meredith, and I'm fine fading Beckham. Given what else we have at the high end of the price range with Green and Julio and Mike Evans, and if you can get those guys at slightly lower ownership because people are flooding to Beckham, I'm fine with that.
Let me say one thing, and maybe this is sour grapes because I hate the dude, but Odell was doing nothing until Jimmy Smith got hurt. Like, he was having one of his standard Odell 2016 games. Then Jimmy Smith leaves the game, and the dude just starts going ham. And
Which, along those lines, is Jimmy Smith going to be out this next week?
I haven't looked at that yet. I'm not sure, but
because Brandon Marshall's in a nice spot if Jimmy Smith is out.
No, I agree. But maybe it was a coincidence, and maybe it wasn't. But I just wanted to put that out there on the record as part of my OBJ hate rant.
OBJ also looked hurt for a second there. I was facing OBJ in a high stakes game and was was feeling really good for a second, and then not so good.
Let's talk a little bit about some advanced or contrarian stacks. And Levitan, let's start with you. What are some of those that you are looking at this week, stacks that you think might pay off, but other people might not be on?
All right. So I think I mentioned the Cincinnati stack. I think everybody's going to go Dalton, AJ Green. I think you consider Dalton LaFell. You could consider Dalton LaFell, Eifert, although I think Eifert might be somewhat limited, but they could treat him like Antonio Gates if he returns, meaning they play him on third down. They play him in the red zone, which would maintain his pass catching role. And I have no problem going back to Mariota stack. I mean, I played Mariota, DeMarco, Delaney. I played Mariota, Delaney last week. I think I'm fine playing those once again. Like, I didn't rewatch the game. I have no idea what happened to Delaney. If anybody knows what happened to Delaney last week, please let me know, because I really have no idea how that happened. But barring anything weird, I think going back to Mariota, Delaney, and certainly Mariota, DeMarco is totally fine by me at home against the Colts.
Yeah, I love the Mariota call. Love it with Delaney. I think people are going to feel burned by that situation. So I think that's a sharp one. I think JM hit on a really good one earlier. Going Rivers and Tyrell the Gazelle makes a ton of sense. Even any combination of Rivers, Henry is another option that you could consider. I think that there are some intriguing, like Stafford. I don't know how owned he's going to be, but I like him quite a bit. And then in addition to that, I mean, Tom Brady to like Hogan or something like that. What do you guys think has the most upside, as the most leveraged Tom Brady stack?
James White.
Yeah, James White, Martellus, but Hogan can get 6 targets, 5 targets, and put up 130 yards and a touchdown. So I like White. I've messed around with a lot of Brady White stacks to start the week, but I don't think you can go wrong. Target, or you can go wrong, but I don't think it's a bad play at low ownership to target Hogan or even Martellus, who could get a big game on their 6 targets that they'll see. I think it's interesting that none of us have mentioned the Oakland-Jacksonville game, and obviously we all know it's a good spot, but just kind of telling with where people's minds will go this week, and that there's a lot of good spots and that game could go overlooked. So something like Carr to Amari. And then, Pete, you mentioned Hunter Henry. I like the idea of adding Hunter Henry to a Falcons stack to get both sides of that. I think Henry's definitely a guy that we want. And Adam, you mentioned LaFell. LaFell has 9 red zone targets this year, which is insane. He's kind of like taking over that red zone role as long as Eifert's out, if Eifert misses again. And then one that I want to get your guys' take on is Kaepernick to Quentin Patton. And I was just about to say, Adam, you're not allowed to answer first because
Can I just say it's nice to have someone else on the show give horrible San Francisco quarterback takes?
You know what? Here's the thing. Okay, and Adam hates San Francisco quarterbacks just as a rule, but Kaepernick is bad. He has no touch, whatever. But Tampa Bay stops the run. I don't know if Gerald McCoy is back or not, but, they're really good against the run. And Kaepernick's going to get 6 points on the ground. He threw the ball to Quentin Patton 7 times last week. Like, who else are they going to throw to? He's going to throw outside the numbers, Torrey Smith and Quentin Patton. Those guys are dirt cheap. You could get 20 points from Patton or Torrey Smith, and you can easily get 18 to 20 from Kaepernick at 5,300 on DraftKings.
No. 22.5-point team total, JM. I get it. I understand. Kaepernick is that guy, but he's going to get more ownership than he should because of all the drama this year, the national anthem and all that stuff. I do think you made a really sharp point, and I wanted to hit on the Oakland-Jacksonville game. I think that's a fantastic spot where you can game stack. Love Bortles to A-Rob as well. I mean, Oakland's been horrific versus the pass, which is why I liked Alex Smith last week. I think this is a spot where Bortles is going to throw a ton. Allen Robinson, another guy with a ton of touchdown equity, and you can do a 5-man stack. I mean, you could go something like Bortles, Allen Robinson, Marquise Lee, who's actually getting a lot of targets, more than Hearns, and then throw back Cooper and Crabtree or whatever combo you want. I mean, this is a spot that could really shoot out, and I definitely like that call.
I would say I like the idea of the Brady-James White stack or the Brady-Hogan stack. James White with Brady in his last 10 games has basically been, like a top 10 PPR running back. And Hogan is a very underrated explosive player in that offense. There's a metric that's been developed by Josh Hermsmeyer, wrote of his air yards. And so if you look, what you see is that Hogan is getting maybe, like 15 to 17, maybe 20% of the targets on that offense. But in terms of air yards, he is getting thrown the ball so deep that when he's connecting, the plays are very big. And so that metric is very indicative of like fantasy point potential in the future. So Hogan really could be a big play. He doesn't need that many targets to accumulate a lot of yards very quickly. So that could be an interesting one, especially I think with low ownership. Let's talk about some bold calls. Last week we were 3 for 6. Levitan, you were especially bold with your Dolphins beating the Steelers call. Pete, you had a flaming hot take in saying that the Chiefs would beat the Raiders in a pick'em. Each of you give me a bold real football call and then a bold DFS call. And Pete, let's start with you and let's see if you can make this week's call just a little bit hotter.
Yeah, I'm not really good at – I mean, the Dolphins one was so obvious at the end, and Vegas cleaned up on that. And any inefficient place that you're looking at lines, they had Pittsburgh, really favored in that spot. So great call there by Adam. One call that I was initially looking at, and I feel really gross saying it, but Buffalo's been playing so well going into Miami, who sucks. I mean, maybe that's a spot I can buy Miami again after beating Pitt, but I don't especially love it with the recency bias. Also thought the Colts going on the road to the Titans could be an interesting one because I'm an Andrew Luck supporter, but I don't really feel great about any of these spots. Maybe the Chargers beat the Falcons. The Chargers are a little underrated, I think, at this point. I guess I'll go with that. I'll say the Chargers beat the Falcons to go out on a limb because that's basically a touchdown difference.
Yeah, so there's not really like a lot of the spots that I like to look at this week. There's not like home dog spots where a team is coming off of kind of an outlier performance. I don't really see it. I mean, you can make a case for the Eagles, but I think the Eagles is kind of built into everybody's perception. People think they're really good, and now they're coming back to earth. That's kind of built in. So I don't even think – I kind of think Minnesota can come into Philly and win, and I never like road favorites ever. So I'm going to have to stick to an over-under here, and I'll hop on what – JM said. I mean, the over-under in New Orleans, Kansas City is 50 right now.
Come on, that's my bold call. You're taking mine.
All right, go ahead. You can have it. No, go ahead. I'll find another.
Yeah, I'm taking the under by a good 3 or 4 points in that Kansas City New Orleans game. That's right. I expect that line to drop by the time we get closer to Sunday, but. Sorry, Adam, but I'm keeping that one. I've had that one written down all day.
Yeah, no, you're right, and you said it first. Damn, I like this is not a I don't see like good spots this week whatsoever for my brand. You know what I mean? Can I pass this week, Freedman, on a real
it's not a week for boldness. Peter was pretty lukewarm too there. Let's go to the DFS bold calls. And Adam, because you've been bringing so much with these with your DFS bold calls, let's start with you. Who do you have?
Yeah, I'll say Andy Dalton over 30 DraftKings points. It's just I think that when you play Cleveland, you can do whatever you want, and hopefully that won't involve 1-yard touchdown plunges for Jeremy Hill unless you do roster Jeremy Hill, which I actually don't think is a bad play at 4K, but But anyways, I think that they can do whatever they want, and a lot of that should be Dalton to LaFell, AJ Green, and hopefully Eifert. So I'll say Dalton over 30 DK points.
That's good. Peter, let's go with you.
I like that call. I don't know how. I hope this is somewhat bold. Allen Robinson hasn't gone over 20 fantasy points one time this year, and I just talked about it. I'll say what top 3 receivers bold or over 30. I mean 25 points. I don't know. Whatever you guys want to use out of those. I expect Allen Robinson to have a huge week, and he should go really low owned with everyone focusing on Julio, AJ Green, even Odell Beckham where he's available, Jordy Nelson on the Thursday slate. I think he'll be one of the top end receivers that you can get at 3-4% ownership.
All right, I like that. That's good. That's sufficiently bold for our purposes.
Yeah, I'll take that as a bold call for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Matt Jones gets us over 20 DraftKings points this weekend against Detroit. And I'll even throw in that he'll do that with 1 or 0 catches. But I like Matt Jones this week at 4,200 on DraftKings to pick up 20 points.
Nice. Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, let's talk about some skill game props. It's the time to put up some 6-packs of Coors Light. Each of you must offer at least one skill game proposition, but I know we're easily going to get past that. I think last week we had, I don't know, it was maybe like 18 skill game props. we're going a little bit crazy here, but I think it's my favorite part of the show. And Pete, let's start with you. Because you are the volume guy. You're the one who just spits them out there.
Oh, yeah, definitely throwing out some volume. I'll take a Blake. I think what we need to do is get the pick'em stuff going here. I'll take Blake Bortles versus your Andy Dalton if you want it.
Okay. Yeah, I have no problem with Blake Bortles this week, but I'll definitely take that. I like Dalton better.
Yeah, I think Dalton has a little bit more equity, but I'll throw that out to get it started.
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean, whenever you want to start with the Alex Smith takes, feel free.
All right. I mean, what's reasonable with Alex Smith? Top 10 quarterback?
I mean, you could go based on price.
Hey, I got you, Pete. Kaepernick outscores Alex Smith this week.
Done.
Oh God, you could have gotten him. You could have gotten him so much worse than Kaepernick.
Dude, you watch Adam. Kaepernick's gonna outscore Alex Smith.
No, I mean I think Kaepernick's an okay play. I'm just not. It's just not for me.
I'm gonna jump on the Jennings side of that little wager right there.
All right, JM, you're heavily invested in Kaepernick.
I got a lot of tout equity in Kaepernick this week.
Yeah, well, I gotta fire something else back in your favor since you just gave me some. You mentioned a couple guys. Who's like your favorite receiver or running back that you want to get behind here?
Well, I'm already behind Matt Jones, so
what's his price?
4,200.
Oh man. I don't even know.
Pete, have you looked at Jeremy Hill at all?
Yeah, I mean, I like Jeremy Hill. I like him and Giovanni Bernard. What's Bernard's price? Like 47 or something?
He's 48, yeah. I mean, like I saw them use Gio at the goal line like a bunch last week.
3 times in a row, and and I had him all over. So tilting.
Right. So, like, I don't know. Is that like a thing now where they're going to use Gio at the goal line? Because if so, Jeremy Hill is just unrosterable if that's the case. I have no idea if that's the case going
Here's the thing for me. Like, we've had 3 years where every 2 weeks, like this last week, Roto World blurbed to say it looks like Gio Bernard's backfield now. And literally 2 weeks ago, they said the same thing about Jeremy Hill.
Yeah.
It's been 3 years now that, like, I just feel like game to game they change. It's not necessarily situational, but –
yeah, but Jeremy Hill's certainly been the goal line back, no?
Yeah, but I don't think that this is like a changing of the guard in that. I think it's just
I'm not believe that more. I don't know, but I was going to say that I would take Jeremy Hill over Matt Jones, but I don't know if I want to. You know what? I'll take that if you want it.
Yeah, I'll take that one for sure.
Right. I'll give you some equity right here. I'll take Devontae Booker for the Broncos plus 5 points.
Yes.
Matt Jones.
I love that call. I like Devontae Booker quite a bit, but
I'll take the lesser side. Like I think what's Matt Jones' projection here? Let's look at Labs real quick here.
I think that's a pretty fair. That's a fair one right there.
I should give you some equity though, based on you doing Kaepernick and Alex Smith.
Do you have Broncos info we should know about, Pete, that Booker is moving past Anderson?
I don't think he's moving past. I just think he's going to be in a similar load. I think they're going to try to save C.J. Anderson throughout the year. I imagine in terms of just rush attempts, it'll end up maybe 55% versus 40, low 40s, and then whatever, maybe 3-4% free bits or whatever. So I think Booker's going to start getting like 11, 12, 13 carries a game.
Man, I kind of feel like if Kubiak had been there last week, Booker would have gotten a lot more carries too. Like I feel like they didn't want to just throw Booker out there a ton, but he clearly looks better than Anderson right now. So
yeah, he almost outrushed him on like half the carries last week. One thing I saw in person, I went to the opening game for the Broncos, and Booker's very first carry in a critical spot, he fumbles, and most rookies in that spot would get benched for the whole game. They kind of go in the doghouse from there. He came back out in the next series and got a touch. So they clearly like him in Denver. He's an older rookie. He got a ton of work at Utah. I mean, I love Devontae Booker, and I think he's someone that'll get going in Denver, and I could definitely see him having a big game at some point in time this year if CJ Anderson gets hurt. So I'll take that. You want to do 5 points? You think that's
5 points sounds good to me.
Okay.
Hey, I got one. Marvin Jones under 60 yards against the Redskins.
Do you think Norman's going to shadow?
I think that there's going to be enough of Norman on Marvin Jones, and I'm not super excited about him.
60, huh? All right, I'll take the over on 60. Even though I love Josh Norman, but I'll take the over on 60.
60 is pretty low, but that's a good.
The Lions throw the ball in every play.
Yeah, I'll take the over on that too. Sign me up for that. What do you guys? We didn't talk enough about Golden Tate versus Marvin Jones. I mean, like, what? Who's a better tournament play, JM?
I'm kind of in Adam's boat that I don't even want to think about it right now. I spent Sunday morning moving on to I used Stafford this last week, Stafford and Marvin Jones, but I was kind of back and forth between Jones and Tate. I think if Theo Riddick's out again, then Golden Tate's an awesome play. I think if Riddick's back, his usage kind of goes back to being more lame, in your lineups. So
and Ebron, right? Like Ebron was out too. In addition to Riddick, it just thins it out so much.
One of my biggest disappointments this last week. I still ended up. I got the last cash in the Thunderdome, but I had a really, really great shot because I had Matthew Stafford and Golden Tate. And I had Golden Tate at 4%, and I ran it back. I had Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, Stafford, and I ran it back with freaking Tavon Austin. And I pulled the trigger on FanDuel with Kenny Britt all over, and I didn't use him at all on DraftKings, which is just so stupid. Considering he was $200 cheaper, and he actually had a bigger prop than Tavon Austin as well. So
I wish
that's one of my biggest regrets.
I wish we had talked last week since you had Britt everywhere. I loved Britt all week, and then literally nobody else talked about him, so I couldn't pull the trigger on him. But
you liking him shows that you're smart and on top of it. I wasn't on Britt until I saw he had one of the best props per price. He definitely stood out from that perspective. And
I felt like an idiot when nobody else mentioned him all week. But
cheaper than Tavon. I mean, he has way more touchdown equity in terms of the passing game. I should have ran that back. That's one of my biggest regrets all year, honestly, because I did sprinkle him in at the end, and it was definitely an ownership play where you definitely could add a lot of leverage there. But I'll throw out some other. I love Julio. I would take Julio having a better performance than you guys can take 2 receivers if you want. So that's a pretty good deal.
That's fine. I'll take AJ Green and Evans.
Yeah, I'll take AJ Green and Evans over Julio.
Yeah, I think you guys have an edge there, but I really love Julio.
Yeah, no, Julio is the man.
Dude, Julio with that stash, he just looks so deadly, bro.
He's the man.
At home too, he's looking explosive again, which is good.
Out of what would you think about Matt Ryan? Where are you kind of comparing him to other quarterbacks in the slate?
It's just expensive. I mean, that's kind of the problem right now is he's somewhat expensive. But I think he's right up there. I mean, probably raw prop projection, 3rd, 4th.
I will take Matt Ryan over any other quarterback you want except for Brady.
Yeah, looking at it now, I guess the next highest projected guy right now is Bortles, Stafford, and Breeze. So
what about Luck?
Yeah, I don't like Luck in that spot.
I mean, yeah, I don't either, but yeah.
Yeah, I think Matt Ryan is clearly. I think it's Brady and Ryan clearly as the top 2 in terms of raw projection.
Yeah.
Because everyone else is close, though. They're 1,000 cheaper. I mean, you have Dalton, Bortles, even Stafford, Rivers. They're all cheaper.
Hey, Matt, what about some points for that? And I'll take Brady.
How many points would you give me?
4?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, take that. I'll take Matt Ryan for points all day.
I think Brady will outscore him by 4.
All right, I'll take that, JM. I'm in on
All
that.
right, there we go.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I think it's good.
But yeah, the thing with Matt Ryan, if you're going to roster him, is the Falcons. I mean, they could attack San Diego either way, so they could attack on the ground. In actual roster construction, I'd much rather pay $500 more for Brady and the shore, passing against Pittsburgh. But as long as Brady's in this FU mode, they're just going to throw a ton. Whereas Matt Ryan could have 28 pass attempts again. So that's the only thing that concerns me about actually paying up $7,200. Technically, he's my second favorite quarterback on the weekend for raw points, but I think he's a little riskier.
No, I do agree with that. There is definitely the possibility that they like what they're doing with the running game. Instead of him throwing the ball to some of the running backs, he hands it to the running backs, and he just doesn't get that opportunity. But he's been deadly at home this year, and even if you are looking back to last year with Kyle Shanahan as his offensive coordinator, he's been very good at home. It's hard to fade him when he did what he did the last 2 weeks against the Broncos and the Seahawks. That was pretty legit. And I don't think it means that he's a very good talent. I think it just means that he's in a good system and they're using him in the right way.
Yep.
Hey, I got one. If I put the over-under at 28.5 for pass attempts for Alex Smith, anybody want the over?
Probably not. Let me see here.
28.5, that's pretty low.
That's pretty low.
I'll take. All right, sure. I'll take
that. I'll take that.
I'll take the under on Alex Smith pass attempts.
He's gone over 28.5 every other game except for this Oakland game.
Yeah, exactly. Saints run defense.
He's got 33 or more actually in every other game.
Saints run defense is so bad that I just think they're going to run the ball.
I get it. I mean, Ware and Charles could both go nuts in this spot. What did you guys think of Charles just from the eye test? I thought he looked good. 90%. I liked his power, but I didn't see the same lateral quickness. That was the one thing I was looking to see.
Yeah, you guys know I don't do this scouting thing. I didn't even go back and watch, so I don't even know. But yeah, I think the coach is telling us that we're going to give Spencer Ware 45 snaps to 10 says a lot, or 40 to 15 says a lot.
I thought he looked good. I mean, maybe not like vintage Jamal Charles, but I thought he looked good.
He looked good at the goal line, that's for sure. All right,
he does that dead leg thing when guys try to hit him, whichever leg isn't planted, he just kind of swings it back and then just keeps running. He's so tough to bring down with that. Guys can't hit him low and take him down, and that looked like it was in full effect this week. So, if he got 20 carries, I would be all over him, but I don't think he'll get 20 carries.
Let's do this. Let's do defense. I'll take one defense. You guys can have two. I'll take my Denver D at home here.
That's fine. I'll take New England and give me Cincinnati.
Yeah, I was going to take New England. Should I add two more of my own?
No. You can take any.
Yeah.
I'll take New England. I don't know. I haven't really thought through defense that much at this point to take another one, but
Cincinnati is home against Cody Kessler. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I'll take both. I'll just jump on board with Adam.
That's a sharp play. So you see a trend here. I'm giving out equity. JM's giving out equity, and then Adam's just sitting over there.
All right.
That's how you get to 10-2 last week. Adam was
just throwing out
up value everywhere.
I'll give you guys some price equity. I'll take if you guys want Hunter Henry, I'll take Cam Brate at 700 less.
Oh yeah, I'll take the Henry side all day.
I'll take Henry. Thank you.
All right, and I do want to point out there for our viewers that even though Hunter Henry outsnapped Antonio Gates last week, Antonio Gates actually ran more pass routes than Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry only ran 19 pass routes, even though he played 40-something snaps, whereas Antonio Gates was running routes, I think, on 21 out of 35 of his snaps or something like that. So just a little nugget there for our viewers. And I hate Antonio Gates as much as anybody. I think he should be taken behind the 10 along with Vincent Jackson. However, the team absolutely loves, and Phillip Rivers absolutely loves, Antonio Gates, and I think he'll be that third down and goal line kind of leverage receiver where Hunter Henry is the every down guy. And you guys know it's not like me to be worried about a young guy in favor of an old guy, but they're just obsessed with Antonio Gates.
Yeah, we know that Wisenhunt and McCoy are just kind of dumb coaches as well.
Exactly.
So they're not going to necessarily adjust.
Yeah, no, Levitan's right there. Hunter Henry last week was really getting the Ladarius treatment. So it's not as if you can look at the snaps and think that automatically translates into routes run or fantasy points. I would like to get thoughts on two guys who up to this point have sort of been staples in cash. David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, both of them in, subpar situation. Both of them have high salaries. What are your kind of quick thoughts on these guys?
I can jump in first on this one because I have Lev Bell's stats from Landry Jones' games last year pulled up. He had one game with 24 carries for 88 yards, no touchdowns, no catches. And then another game with 121 yards rushing and 4 for 16 through the air, which was 20.7 DK points. So, I think they're going to still try to ride him. And I think that he'll put up probably 17 to 20 points. And then I just don't think he's going to be worth the salary where his salary was set, before it was announced that Roethlisberger would be out. So I think Bell's a fine play, honestly. I just don't think he's going to put up a monster game. And David Johnson is against Seattle, right? It's tough to fade David Johnson, but I'm fine not using him this week.
Yeah, tough to fade both. They have been staples, but these are certainly spots where you could do it. Definitely off Le'Veon Bell at 8K. I will say I am very intrigued by David Johnson. We'll absolutely have him in tournaments at 7,400. I mean, he just went absolutely off against the Jets run D. Everyone's tweeting at me saying, oh, the Jets D is actually not good, all this stuff. I buy the Jets run D. I'm still buying them. They were excellent last year. They've been excellent to start this year. David Johnson's just a physical freak, and Arizona has a good offense. I mean, one thing I think benefits David Johnson that people don't talk about enough is he has some of the best run blocking from his receivers. One thing that Larry Fitzgerald does not get enough credit for is being an excellent run blocker at that position, and he brings David Johnson free all the time. The whole situation is pretty good, and I'm still long Arizona just in general as a football team, so I'll have some shares of David Johnson. I definitely like the 600 savings you get versus Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, I mean, the problem for cash is we all are going to want to play Julio and AJ Green and Mike Evans, and then how are you going to fit one of Le'Veon Bell or David Johnson? It's going to be really hard, especially when they're not in optimal spots. So, I mean, from first glance, I doubt that I'll have either one.
Yeah. But I am with Pete there that I think it could be a really interesting spot to get David Johnson at what looks like reduced ownership in tournaments. Let's talk about tight ends just a little bit. I want to talk just briefly about Jimmy Graham and then get some skill game props from you guys on tight ends. Graham, I mean, it looks like he's back, but back in a different way. As I think Levitan had said at one point, he's really playing that wide receiver position as opposed to kind of the tight end position. And what we really saw from Graham in New Orleans was a guy who was getting a lot of touchdowns, but not he was getting a lot of yards too, but he was more of a touchdown guy as opposed to a huge yardage guy. Right now, what we're seeing out of him is a guy who's getting more of his action on yardage than touchdowns. So I'm kind of curious to see how all that shakes out moving forward. But let's hear any skill game props for tight ends that you guys have.
We already have Brait versus Henry. I took both of them on in that.
I want Gronk. I want something with Gronk here. What can I get with Gronk? You want to take 3 tight ends versus Gronk and one has a better game? You want to set a point?
Over under 1.5 TDs?
No.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to cuss on you.
Yeah, what tight ends? What 3 tight ends have a good shot at outscoring Gronk?
No, I'm saying that. So if you take, I think I'll actually take it. If you want Gronk, I'll take 3 tight ends versus Gronk.
Yeah, I would take Gronk as far as raw points.
Yeah, just one of them only one of them has to outscore, and it's a winner for the person who takes 3 guys.
Yeah, fire off 3 tight ends.
Okay, I'll take Jimmy Graham, Travis Kelce, Delaney Walker.
I like the spot for Kelce this week. I just don't think that they're going to throw enough for him to get over 5-6 targets.
You have a correlated portfolio. I like it, JM.
But here's a tight end for you guys. Charles Clay has between 5 and 7 targets each of the last 3 weeks since Sammy Watkins went down. And they're going to Miami, which is his old team. So if we want to get narrative straight on that, Charles Clay is super cheap. I think he's like $3K. So I think I don't know what skill bet to make with that, but I just think he's a good play, worth bringing up at a pretty cheap salary.
Well, one quick second. I'm going to jump on the Gronk versus those three that Peter named, because I think those are the chalk three that you have to pick if you're going against Gronk.
So what side do you take in Freedman?
I'm taking your side.
Okay. Charles Clay, just real quick note, he did leave the game with an ankle injury. I was on him last week. Still had a good game left in the fourth quarter. Just keep an eye on him. But if he is cleared to go, one nice thing that I should mention that I've seen quite a bit on DraftKings, anyone who has a Q next to their name that's totally good, they go under owned. So Charles Clay could definitely be that guy. Again, it's Tuesday. I have no idea. Keep track with everyone what's going on. Adam, do you have any insight there? I assume it's too early.
Yeah, too early. We'll find out a lot more tomorrow on all these guys, so we'll know then. But how about this? I'll take Vernon Davis over Charles Clay if you guys want.
I'd take the Vernon Davis side.
Yeah, I would too.
I like both sides of that, but I'll take Charles Clay on it.
All right.
What do you guys think about Kyle Rudolph? I think he's way too cheap. I don't like that matchup at all against Philly. So
he's so cheap. I don't know how he's that cheap. Yeah,
he's been great in the red zone all year.
He's a better play than Hunter Henry too.
Kyle Rudolph this week?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll disagree with that.
All right, let's do it.
Skill game.
All right.
Anybody have any takes on Jack Doyle?
Doyle rules, bro.
Dwayne Allen out?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I can do it, but I don't know. A lot of people are going to be on it.
That's a play that I would never see. I like Adam. I know Adam's teams like before they come out. Like I just know which guys. Doyle is never on the 11-man squad. Like, just that's never happening.
No, I'm not a fan of Doyle this week. I just wondered if any of you had any hot takes on him at this point.
Let's finalize with a couple of running backs. I mean, I think there's some interesting ones. Like I would take David Johnson over McCoy if either of you guys want McCoy over David Johnson.
All right, I'll give you some equity there. I'll take it.
Okay, and then also some interesting ones. I think a lot of people are going to be on DeMarco Murray. I like him quite a bit.
Yeah.
Trying to think of what other ones I could go to here.
I'm going to do McCoy on that, Peter.
I think that's fair. What about
I'll take Devonta Freeman over somebody in that range, except for Spencer Ware if you want.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman. I do think San Diego's a little bit better against the run. I need to check some of the stats recently, but they were doing all right versus the run to start the year.
By the way, I'm looking at my sheet here. I'm not sure if this is accurate, but it says that San Diego Atlanta opened with a total of 50.5, and it's already up to 53. Is that what we have on Labs? Because it's a pretty drastic jump right out of the gate. But 53 would be really high for Atlanta, San Diego. That's a lot of points.
Yeah, that is the total right now is 53. It's very high. A lot of other totals have dropped. One of the most significant drops is that Titans opened with a 28.75 team total. It's already down to 25. That's a massive move.
Who did? The Saints?
No, the Titans.
Oh, the Titans.
They opened 28.75 down to 25 now. They opened as a 6.5-point favorite. Now they're in a 2.5-point favorite. So that's one big move to pay attention to. Early in the week, obviously the Falcons, another one that's been really big, and then outside of that, it's been pretty small moves. Has moved more towards the Vikings, and also a little bit of a down move for the Lions as well. But nothing.
Hey, Levitan, what did you say the original line was? 50.5.
My screen is showing open 50.5. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, do any of you guys want to take some action on that original line?
I'll take over.
Yeah.
I'll take the over.
Now that it's 53, I'll say over.
I'll take the over on 53 if anyone wants to take the under.
Oh, so I thought you were just offering over 50, and now you want the over on 53?
I just wanted to see what you guys were going to do. I'm willing to go I'll go over on 53 if you guys want some of the under on it.
Sure, I'll take the under just as a hedge because I'm gonna have a lot of this game. So I'll take it.
Do we have a cumulative result of the guests on this skill game prop for the guests? Because I feel like the guests have done horrific, and I feel like JM's going to do okay, but I feel like the guests have just gotten completely trucked, threatened from everybody.
Yeah, it's so bad, I don't even want to say.
You guys got to get better guests. What's up with this?
Well, JM, you're like the perfect guest because you have contrarian takes, but you came out of the gate giving some serious equity.
That's the thing. Yeah,
You got to play the game a little bit. I mean, you're like, oh, Colin Kaepernick, Alex Smith. I was ready.
Yeah,
That's
the thing. You went on Alex Smith against Tom Brady.
It's willing to give more. So it's horrible. I don't know if I should.
You don't have to say it.
I'll say
I want to hear it.
Whatever. The guests are 10 and 28.
All right, I can beat that. I can beat that win percentage.
Yeah, I would imagine so. All right, let's wrap this up. We had a very lengthy skill game prop section there. Guys, thanks for being on the show. We've been speaking with JM Tohline, Adam Levitan, and Peter Jennings on Twitter at JM to win, Adam Levitan, and CSU Ram 88. You can follow me on Twitter at Matt F. The Oracle. I'm Matthew Freedman, and this has been the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast for Week 7. If you like the show, please rate and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Podbean. Also, you can contact us via email, podcast@fantasylabs.com. Let us know what you think. Follow us on Twitter at FantasyLabsPods. And be sure to check out all of our content on the site, especially our NFL dashboard with game previews and positional breakdowns out on Thursday. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck, and we will see you next week.